Hi, this is Shane Starr. It feels like it's been a while, even though I've been posting on my other channel quite regularly. I've been waiting to do something that I thought was reasonably helpful and yet simple. So I jotted down a few ideas this morning about staying in our comfort zones and what are the benefits and shortcomings of that strategy. And I started coming up with things that each type needs to slow down with. And then I realized from the extroverted types to the introverted types, it's almost like the extroverted types need to slow down, whereas the introverted types need to speed up. And it's all sort of related to our lead functions and our inferior functions. So I'll go down the list and we'll see where it goes from there. All right, so um, slowing down to find a better comfort zone in our lives. We'll start with SE, that's our ESTPs and ESFPs. And I think they need to for a better, more comfortable life, they need to start slowing down on their variety of experiences, things that they like to do, the variety of objects they possess and purchase, sometimes people, and they should really, what will help them is using their inferior introverted intuition to focus on planning for something they really like. Use all that variety, start paring it down, start to focus, find what your real passion is, and it'll be like a wide flashlight turning into a narrower stream, but so much stronger. And then you'll get more passion out of intensity than you do from a variety of things. And I think, and ultimately that's what SE leads want to do anyway. They love that intensity, and the way to do it is to, you can't chase everything everywhere. You have to pick and choose. And I think a lot of times it takes too long for them to pick and choose, and by the time they've done that, their choice is made for them. So try to reel it in, scale down those experiences, and focus on the ones you really like, master those, and you'll find a better comfort zone for yourselves. Next, that is our extroverted intuitive types. That's our ENTPs and our ENFPs. And for them, I would say, they're the most creative of all the types. They have a ton of great ideas, but that takes them on an emotional roller coaster. And I've seen it play out with both of these types in my life, where they have so many good ideas, but they never have a chance to develop any of them, because it's on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. It's kind of like an Enneagram 7 type of thing. They never stop searching, and all of those ideas, without any of them acted upon, is the same as nothing. And so I think to find a better comfort zone, you have to link in your inferior SI, introverted sensing. Find some safeguard routines. I know that's a bad word for any leads, but routines to sort of anchor your world down a little bit. Start to focus on those ideas that really show promise, and start bearing fruit from those, instead of cutting each idea down before it gets a chance to develop. So so many ENTPs and ENFPs, I know they're like a kite, and you cut the string and it just flies all around. A little bit of a routine, it seems constrictive at first, but with a string attached to it and a nice breeze, a kite does its job really well, and it'll fly really nicely. And you can have a lot of fun with it. Same thing with your life. If you anchor it down just a little bit, you know, start paring those ideas down and be focused on the ones that really show promise, you'll enjoy a better, more sustainable comfort zone. All right, moving on to our FE types. That's our ESFJs and our ENFJs. These people are the most social probably of all the types, and you know, they're on the go socially constantly, you know, parties, vacations, events, hosting this, hosting that, and in doing so they can run themselves ragged. But besides that, I think they would do well to work on themselves. You know, they're so outwardly directed, you know. And again, I won't always use Enneagram as an example, but linking these guys to Enneagram 2 a little bit, they do and think and plan so much for others that they tend to neglect themselves. And when they do that, you find that, you know, the life of the party is somehow depressed, you know, in the quieter moments. I think using their inferior TI, introverted thinking, to sort of look at the mechanisms behind their behavior, behind their drive to be social. And again, you're seeing a common theme here, paring it down, you know. Start saying no to some of these events, focus on the ones that really matter to you, and you'll get less breadth but more depth in your relationships. You'll have less superficial people coming in and out of your life, less superficial relationships, and you'll have a deeper, more meaningful time with family and friends. But if you're doing too much, nothing that you do is going to give you that ultimate meaning, because it doesn't have the chance to really develop, because you're on to the next. So slow down on the social expansion, zero in on the relationships that really give you what you need in life. All right, our last extroverted function, extroverted thinking. So these are ENTJs and our ESTJs. And even though, you know, ENTJs have a vision like ESTJs, they can be like the mouse on the revolving wheel, running, getting nowhere, not realizing that with all their accomplishments, all these activities, they're not even sure they want to be on that treadmill or wheel. And again, this common theme of slowing down, I think they need to dive into their inferior introverted feeling, figure out what really matters to them in life. You know, ask yourself, who are you at your core? What are you? You know, this is sort of like an Enneagram 3 problem. Who are you underneath all this activity, what you're doing, your job title, what you're planning? What makes you really happy? And maybe it is some of those things, but guaranteed it's not all of them. Guaranteed there's different things you could focus on that would give you more meaning in your life. And I think for both ENTJs and ESTJs, a lot of what they do is sort of on autopilot. And to be sure, that looks different in these two types. What I'm saying is probably more applicable at surface value to ESTJs, because they're the ones that just are attached to their routines, going on autopilot, and then wake up 10 years later going, what have I done with my life? Why have I made these choices? You know, so on and so forth. But it can happen in a bigger, more significant way with the ENTJs, where they neglect family, friends, everyone in their lives, and then they find themselves like, okay, I made it, so what now? And they just get lost, and there's nowhere to go from here, and they've sacrificed everything else to get there, so there's no place to retreat to. Find out what really matters to you before it's too late, and make time for those things. So again, slow down on all the activity and do the activities that are meaningful to you more thoroughly, and you will reap the benefits in a more comfortable life overall. All right, now to our introverted functions. We'll start with introverted thinking, our TI people. These are our ISTPs and INTPs. They're the most analytical of all the types, the best thinkers, pure thinkers, really. The problem with them is that they have such great ideas, different from the tons of ideas of the NE leads, but these guys have developed like empires in their minds, but they are no good if you don't put them into social practice. It's like an inventor with a great machine, but they never market it, so no one ever gets to see it or use it. I would say if you are a TI type, especially, and I know a couple who I've interacted with on my channel, one of them should have his own channel. He's one of the smartest, if not the smartest typologists I know. I would like for him to start his own channel. I'd be his first follower. But, that's the idea. These guys are brilliant and they know what to do. They know how to do it, but something keeps them from taking that next step forward. And it's like, if I had a mind, an analytical mind of that sort of power, I would definitely be doing more. To start with, I'd be using, all the bells and whistles on my channel or something. But if you have that invention or you have that mechanism, bring it out to the world. You use your brilliant mind to help others. And so rather than slow down, speed up, turn your thoughts into reality. All right. Next up are introverted feelers. These are ISFPs and INFPs. And although they're the most value-laden and most personal introverted feeling types, obviously their name, of all the types, it's easy to go down the rabbit hole with the soul searching for that ultimate value and goodness in your world. And I think what the FI leads lose and need to hear is that the more they search for themselves, they end up losing themselves. In order to find yourself, you have to get out of yourself. You have to, in effect, lose yourself. You have to get out there and act in the world. Use your inferior TE to start acting, start doing things, start turning your passions into reality, and then that's when you'll find yourself. You won't find it down the rabbit hole on page 486 of your latest novel. And even if you do find it there, it'll be meaningless until you do something about it the next day. So turn your thoughts into actions, use your TE, get it going, get that mechanism working, and turn your dreams and thoughts into reality. Next up are introverted intuitive types, our INFJs and INTJs. These guys have a plan for everything, detailed plans on how to make their lives better, how to make the world better sometimes. And if you talk to any of them, they'll tell you about their ideas, and they usually make sense. And they're usually fortified with TI logic, which helps them make even more sense. The problem is they never get around to using what they know. They're always building from the beginning, always tinkering, always perfecting, always, we're not quite ready to roll this out yet, but we will. I know an INFJ who has a business channel, and I loved it. Like, he had some of the best corporate advice ever, and then he took all his videos off and he's reworking his channel right now. and it was supposed to come back out in January, then February, then March, and now he says it'll come back out in April. I'm like, dude, what are you waiting for? You already had a great channel before this revamping. I don't know what he's got planned. Maybe it'll make it way better. Maybe he's got new graphics or something. I don't know. But, you know, there's an old saying, usually attributed to John Lennon, but I'm sure it was around before that. And that is, life is what happens while we're making other plans. I want to repeat that. Life is what happens while we're making other plans. And I think this applies more to INFJs and INTJs than any other types. It's like they have all these plans about changing themselves, sometimes changing the world, and they never get around to kick-starting that inferior SE and taking action, actually doing it, actually getting started. Your plans are meaningless without the fire behind them to make them work. So wherever you are, INFJs and INTJs, if you're listening to this, stand up, take a little walk around your room and think to yourself, okay, let's plan a day, more planning, right? Let's plan a day where I'm going to actually start no matter what. Doesn't matter if I'm sick, I'm starting anyway. If I'm feeling happy, I'm starting anyway. If I'm depressed, I'm starting anyway. If I got called into work early or something, I don't care, I'm starting anyway. Just start. There's beauty in action and genius in it also. Take a page out of the lead SE's book and just get it out there, see what happens, and make some adjustments on the fly. Chances are you already are adjusted for contingencies and you'll be just fine. Okay, last but not least, our introverted sensors. And this is turning your comfort zone inside out, you know, and I would say from an MBTI perspective, at least, this is the most function I can relate to here. And that is always seeking comfort to the extent that you're missing out on opportunities and fruitful options that you could be taking, you know. At my current job, you know, I love my job. I've been here for about 2 years now, and it's the best job I've ever had, and I love it so much that I don't want to leave it even for something technically better, you know. And I think from the outside looking in, that's a problem, you know. And I think, you know, to use the slow down analogy, I think maybe SI people, at least from my experience, need to slow down on seeking that comfort zone all the time. In fact, turn it inside out and use the inferior NE for ISTJs and ISFJs. Use the inferior NE to shake things up. Be open to new experiences. Be open to surprises. Be open to new ways of being. And then if you're like me, you'll make new routines out of those also and just ride them to the ground till you have to change, right? But, you know, I get it. But yeah, if you're an SI lead or if you're a high SI user and you're so attached to your routines, you know, remember that life is movement, and when you stop moving, you might as well be dead. And moving means change. It means adapting. We have to adapt. We have to change. Change is growth. Change is movement. Change is life. So if you're an SI user, try to start activating that inferior NE to find a new comfort zone in new routines and experiences. Be open to change. Be open to new ideas. All right, you guys, that's all I have for today. I'll come up with something new next week. Until then, peace out.